growing community because just we continued meeting together. And they really got to the point where they started thinking about the project, and that's what they call it, like it's more of an educational movement. And this is something we use for motivation every time we meet. That what's this slide, this is what we share to get energized. These are the names of my team, and I know you're not familiar with names, but it just happens all of them are women, and not by design, just by accident. And just because a lot of the people who go into graduate school in education tend to be women. So I'll show you their pictures. So that's us on the mission, the team. So the project steering team is based in Beirut. So what is the thing that we always refer to that it is triggered this whole project? This is what symbolizes it for me, which is a faucet of ideas, resources, attempts, energy, and nothing is holding. Everything is leaking. So we're putting too much and nothing is really, we can't observe anything. And the other thing about this picture that I like and I also highlight is the fact that somehow we're waiting. So we're passively waiting for something to happen. And it really captures what is happening at the school level, specifically with teachers. Teachers that are the expert, teachers that are in the front line, teachers that are really making decisions every minute on what is to happen with these kids, and they can make a lot of difference in these children's lives. So that's the problem. What, of course, why we are there is many reasons, many factors. So the factors that we highlighted are, I'll just click them all, are some that are everywhere. You know, like you can identify with some of those: limited resources for research and development, top-down reform, lots of decision made at the top, focus on technical rather than the social impact of schooling, outdated PD practices. I don't know to what extent you can really rely on that, but I know from reading in the international literature, these are pretty common. The reason they are highlighted here is not just because the Arab countries are the only countries that experience that, but rather that they really resulted in major impediment. So if I take, for example, this uncritical adoption of Western models, if it is done in the US, it must work. Nobody take time even to check if that was something that people in the US are happy with. Because, you know, you might have tried it and it might have been published, you might have even nice websites about it, but then there is somewhere there a report written that says, it wasn't a good idea and we're not sure we want to do it. We don't go there. So the moment it's flagged by this is coming specifically Western, this is most of our exposure. The US is a major influence, England as well. What's happening in Canada, of course, now we have the flagship Finland. Everybody wants to be like Finland. So like, tell us what you're doing and that's what we think. So this is really a problem because it really makes us not think critically about what applies, what are our priorities, what really matters, what is critical strategically to start with. And it also increases our passivity because we're waiting for you to think for us. So get to work, and when you figure it out, we'll just, you know, read what you've done. So it's pretty much this attitude as well, all across. The other big critical issue that we have is this really big gap between practice and research. So we have developing knowledge-based research and education is growing, and there is more universities, graduate programs that are working on that, but they have no interest to question what they are producing as of knowledge, whether it's making any difference for the people on the ground, whether it is really influencing practice. So again, I read a lot about that gap, but ours is huge. So on top of all that, I remember when I was here, you will talk about the bureaucracy and all these limitations that come, especially for people wanting to try new ideas, innovation. I'm like sitting in a tight jacket here because of bureaucracy. We have on top of that, it's pretty politicized. Politicized, it means depending on who's in power, you know, things swing back and forth, and you have with quite a bit of irregularity that you cannot even spot. So it becomes like, a guessing game, how to maneuver around the system. So 12 years ago is when there was this unique opportunity in 2007, and we had a regionally, we call them local, but they are regional, so it's people with money, businessmen from the Arab region, all around the Arab region, that had put together this foundation, and they decided finally to fund education. That was their first education project. They used to fund more cultural type of cultural preservation, translation, broad project. So that was their first project, and this is when TAMAM started. So the methodology in this research lab by itself is a paradigm shift, because we use action research. We work like the key research activity that happens in this research lab is action research. And it is collaborative action research. And lately we added the word emancipatory just to highlight that it is action research for improvement, specifically social improvement. So education as a vehicle of improvement, and action research trying really to find solutions that will help us transform our practice. What is really a paradigm shift in that region is the fact that the practitioners themselves participate in that research. This is huge over there, because the mindset is that practitioners are to be told, or at least about the knowledge, and knowledge production happen only in academia and nowhere else. So also the other aspect of the action approach that we use is that we work a lot on building on assets. And it's kind of very interesting, like for me to go working a little bit here in the US with the perception of scarcity among a lot of my colleagues, like, oh, we don't have resources. And I remember my first visit to one of the schools in North Portland, where my second home is, telling me like, oh, you're going to see like really a high need school, barely any resources. And I still remember this is in 1990s, and I walk into that school and I'm like, every classroom has a computer. Oh my God. And they have like, and then I go to the playgrounds like, whoa, how many, like there were these colorful balls that the kids can play with. I was like, they have all that? And I was like, and went and checked, are you sure? So until I get to the point where, it's a relative thing, over there it's really scarcity. So scarcity in resources to the point that people sometimes don't have the luxury to develop the skills that are needed. And not because they don't want to, but because they are juggling too much. And there's so much happening. So basically, if we are to approach them as people trying to trigger reform as focusing on what they don't have, let me tell you what the result will be. I will not even try it. You will not even try it, because if your mind will analyze what is there, you'll go 1 + 1 is 2. 2 means let's go home. It won't work. So this building on asset was huge in whoever is engaging in this project at any level possible, so that we can really learn together and we can make the impact that we would like to do. So as a result, everybody is, I kind of said that, engaged in both research and development. We ask many research questions. We go almost like as if you're, for the biologist, as in your microscope, you increase how much you want to focus or back up. So sometimes we set these broad questions until we understand a little bit more and we start to focus. And in other occasions, we have really specific questions. Really, how can we make them like studying the Arabic language? So we have people working on that, as well as what kind of capacity building we need to do, what kind of skills we need to give them as big strokes, big titles. What do we need to do, and how can we make that happen? So these are kind of the two overarching questions that kind of constitute the umbrella of what we do. How can we build the capacity for school-based reform? And what are the conditions that we need to put in place so that we enable these institutions to keep on doing it and never stop on making this improvement? So we do read the international literature. Specifically, in Arab countries, the second language access to the information varies tremendously, but there is always at universities sufficient number of people who have that. So we take advantage of this and access the literature. We know this, we work from the same people that, people here, if anybody is in school improvement, we really follow the key scholars, their work, and take them very, very seriously, try to see what they have achieved. However, we go back to the idea of whatever we work with is dependent on trying it out and seeing to what extent it fits our context. So if I'm to capture that in a picture, that's exactly what happened in this project. We read, and we thought, okay, this would be our prototype. That's how we will do it. We got few schools who volunteered to be our guinea pigs. And we worked with them to implement what we have. We refined it, we evaluated, we developed the model further, we refined it further, and we have aspects of this model that are kind of saturated, exactly like in your research. Like every time now we take it and we try it in a different school or a different context, we keep getting, like nobody will complain anymore. Nobody will say, oh, you should have thought of this. Why don't you try this? Why don't you change that? So we have aspects that we are claiming that it seems we really reached this grounded model. There are other aspects when we take them to a different context. So let's see, say my experimental school was in Jordan. So I tried it with this school. When I move it to Lebanon, then there is other issues that emerge there that need to be adjusted, and we keep adjusting. So multiple aspects of what we do, the professional development, some are more mature than others, but we're kind of, it's a bit messy, but we're kind of moving together, like moving it along as we have opportunity. So that was our original, we're calling it our theory of change. We come to schools with the belief that we form teams, but with the beliefs that there is something happening there. We want to get them more active. We build their capacity as leaders of school-based improvement. We want them to learn how to lead school-based improvement in their institution. Once they do that, we believe that they will be facing multiple barriers, impediments, and they will form a very good idea about what they would like to see different in their school. So they will be able to voice those from an informed position to the policymakers. And instead of our policymakers being the one in charge, very busy, looking for ideas from everywhere, they will be more of a listeners, that's what we dream, and they will be basically making decisions that are creating the conditions that enable this process to continue on its own. We're trying to understand how to do this. We're trying to understand how this looks like. And of course, we're trying to understand what exactly are these supportive conditions. Most of our work so far, like the intense work, has been here. So like now we're kind of venturing in the upper part.